so annoying that like Ryan's rubbed off on me in a lot of ways. So I think I've done role plays on here of cold calls, and I'm pretty naturally good on my feet. I'm actually a really good cold caller when I do it. There's got to be a sound script, and that's what's been interesting listening to Ryan's script, because there's like intentional pauses, there's intentional until he gets answers to his like probing questions he wants to ask.
Whoa. Who knew I would make it this far? They hated, they never believe me. Yeah, I would never drop the ball. I know I'm making.
For all you football degenerates out there, you know what time of the year it is. It is football season. But that shit doesn't kick off until tomorrow, so whether you're mowing the grass or making the commute to work, do yourself a favor and come hang out with us for this week's episode of the Best Damn Agency Podcast. This is your place for unfiltered, unscripted, no bullshit conversation about all things digital agency ownership, life, and of course, agency sales. I am the host of this here shindig, JJ Russell. Joining me as always, the founder of the Best Damn Agency Mastermind, CEO of Apex Revenue, recently purchased Phone Ready Leads, the man, the myth, the legend, Joey Gilkey. Nice hat.
Wow.
What's up, dude?
Thanks, dude. Dad gang.
Yeah, so what's a dad gang?
It's a gang of dads, dude. I don't know, dude. I like this guy on Twitter. He's got this like dad brand. And his hats are freaking dope. They're high quality. They come formed.
Yeah, they're cool.
They're very cool. I've got a camo. I have a camo one. I have this color, and I have a navy one. Probably gonna wear this one to Notre Dame because Notre Dame colors.
Notre Dame college football season, man. We are at the time of this airing. We will be, or at least you will be in Chicago, and we will be rallying tomorrow in South Bend, Indiana for the home
You'll
opener.
be in Chicago too, because you're going to talk your wife into letting you.
I'm working on it, man. I'm working on it. I'm not a magician, but we all know who the leader of my household is.
Well, it's just that I wear pants, so.
Yeah, my comment on leading my household was definitely tongue-in-cheek. So.
Sick.
Well, also, at the time of this I was about to say, at the time of this airing, we will have gotten through some of the initial like primary debates, and so I was just kind of filtering through some of the trickle down analysis of Trump not being a part of the debate. What is your thought?
Oh, it's so smart. So smart. I mean, it's a big dick move where he's like, I don't need to debate. I'm leading by so much. You guys are going to compete for my VP spot if you're lucky. That's what he's doing. He doesn't need to. All he's going to do is get asked dumb questions. And right now he's leading by a substantial landslide. And so why would you jeopardize that?
I guess you just have to respect the fact that he is really good at playing the game. Yes. Not necessarily in the same way that most politicians pander. Right? I don't feel like he necessarily panders. But there's still tactical maneuvering involved. And so where he was the one that was like ribbing and jabbing people who were refusing to debate in 2016 because he wanted to get up on the stand next to them and bully them. Yep. Now he's the one that's taken the other position. And what's funny is Vivek is like, I'm going to give him hell. I'm going to give him hell for not debating because he was the one that was pushing so hard for it in 2016. But I guess, again, if you've got 50-something% of the vote, it doesn't matter. Yeah,
I mean, he can kind of do what he wants. And I mean, it's no different than what the media talks out one side of the mouth and then they do something else later and they change their tune all of a sudden. It's just like, whatever. People are they play a game and they're not educated enough to even know that. Like most people wouldn't even know that Trump fought for that back then. But Vivek, dude, is a freaking baller. I mean, at the time of recording this, the first debate happens tonight. So I'm interested to see how he does. I know he's going to perform because he's just been hot on the mic lately.
What time?
His strategy's good. I forget the time. I'm definitely going to watch it, though.
Me too.
But his strategy's been so good, dude. He just gets culture.
Yep.
And so he's hitting podcasts. He's getting on news channels. He's getting on opposing news channels and like being reasonable. What I like about him is he has the opinions of Trump. But he has the empath or the empathy of a human being that's not a autistic.
Well, and you mentioned like speaking out of both sides of your mouth. I feel like in some ways even like Trump just wants to be right no matter what side he takes. Yes. And sometimes he'll take either side when it's advantageous to him.
Sure.
With Vivek, like America first and primary American principles and like freedom of speech and freedom to petition. And so he's at a town hall. I don't know if you've seen a couple of these videos, but there's one, I think it was like the Iowa town hall or something. And some enraged like LGBTQ activist who's like pushing for abortion comes in and just starts like screaming at him and interrupts this entire speech he's giving.
Yep.
And like people are, the security guards are grabbing her. And I know that part of this, like maybe it's a little bit of like he knew that it was going to be good TV and good airtime. I don't know, but I really do. Oh, he seems like a genuine person.
I've seen a couple like very candid capturings of him doing the same thing with like a journalist who's.
Well, he had him bring her back up. He's like, no, she deserves the right to be heard, and he asks her to like restate why she's so frustrated, and he's like, hey, respectfully, we disagree, but you have the right to your opinion, and I'm sorry that you feel so hurt. I thought it was pretty cool, man. I think more of those conversations need to be happening at the grassroots, community level. And if our people in office lack the ability to have them, like they're not modeling what needs to trickle down.
100%. I think good leaders have empathy. I can come across as a hard ass, and empathy is not natural, like not a super like natural thing that I have.
Yep.
But it's something I work on. I do think you can work on it, even though Gary Vee's like, I don't know how you work on it, or whatever he talks. But I do think that empathy is an incredibly important characteristic to possess.
So interesting. There's another just kind of like hot social political topic. I saw this take yesterday, and I'd never thought about it. And so maybe you already have, but I just want to throw it out there into the ether.
You do realize I sit on my farm every night for an hour.
I know. Okay,
that's
have you thought
the best part? Go ahead.
Have you thought about the fact that race is actually fluid, whereas gender is completely binary?
Race is fluid. Yeah. No, I mean, gender is obviously binary. There's only retards think that that's not the case.
But where you could claim like gender dysphoria or like you're being misgendered, you could actually like there's far more credibility to being I don't even know how you'd say it, ethnicized. I don't know what the word is there.
Racially profiled incorrectly.
There you go. That's the one that I wanted.
Sure.
Because race is technically a construct, and there's an infinite number of combinations between intermarriages and different things. And if like how many different skin tones are there and shades of and I don't know. Just like
it's like body types. Well, like there's an infinite amount of body types, and like there's body dysmorphia. So
sure.
Yeah, dude, I totally get it. I think that you're right, and I think that people are idiots no matter what.
Yeah, people are dumb.
Really are. Man.
All right, let's talk about your current situation. We talked about all the grandeur of the acquisition.
Yep.
Your day-to-day has immediately gotten very difficult just because there's a lot of shit to take care of.
Yeah.
Interested to know, as you're like a little over a week in or so, what right now, down to the nitty-gritty, is your favorite part of where you're at in this acquisition process, and what's the hardest? Well, I was about to put favorite and hardest as opposing, like as the opposites. That's not necessarily true. So let's just say favorite versus least favorite part of what you're dealing with.
All right. Favorite, there's two. There's like big picture, and then there's like day to day.
Yep.
Big picture, my favorite. So if you think about like you've heard of like companies that are vertically integrated, right? Where it's a real estate company who also owns a mortgage company who also owns a bank, whatever. We're kind of a vertically integrated sales operations company, or even revenue operations, depending on how deep we want to go. But what's interesting is this acquisition has allowed us to do a couple of things. So for those who are listening and don't know my full background, my last company prior to Apex Revenue, formerly known as Sales Driven Agency, was a company called Tribe. And Tribe was a lead generation outsourced SDR type of company. You see 1,000 of them nowadays. They annoy the shit out of you. They're not very good. Nonetheless, we existed at top of funnel, right? And so what's really interesting is after essentially Tribe and moving into Sales Driven Agency, now Apex, we went from being top of funnel to then building a company around middle and bottom, right? How do we solve for the sales operation and actually realize revenue through closing revenue, account executives, nurturing, all the things that go into a sales operation. So we went down funnel with our offer.
Yep.
What's interesting is Ryan, who, and he actually explained this, I'm regurgitating what he said because it really painted a really cool picture for me. A thing I already knew, but like the way he explained it's a little bit more eloquent maybe. But he also ran a lead gen agency back in the time. We were competitors, frenemies, whatever, at one point. And he kind of exited his at the same time. And he went up funnel. He went above funnel with phone ready leads, right? So if lead gen is top of funnel, lead gen agency, sales agencies, Apex exists in the rest of the funnel all the way through revenue. He went above and he kind of created the funnel above the funnel, or above the funnel, as we call it. And what's cool is now that we have purchased PRL, we own above the funnel, top of funnel, middle, and bottom entirely.
Yeah, that's sweet.
And so there is an entry point into working with us from every possible. And now I'm potentially trying to negotiate a deal with a tech company, and I'll explain this later, JJ. You'll freaking love this, but I won't do it on this call. But there's a really cool play there to have that. But anyways, we're full funnel. So that's my like big picture excitement. My next like day-to-day excitement is realizing that as I've met, call it 70% of their clients at this point, I've just realized that there's a lot of efficiencies I can do with their offer. How they bill, what they force their clients into. Like a lot of times,
a lot of immediately added value to what they've already built.
Yeah, and it's value in different ways than just monetary, but a lot of clients are basically paying when they submit a list, whereas I'm going to, because there's nowhere else to get this data in the world, if you want access to PRL, you pay a retainer, no matter what. And it's a credit system, and it's a use it or lose it credit system, but you have to pay. I'm going to basically look at every account. I'm going to identify what they have over the course of the past 90 days, submit it from a list perspective. I'm going to find what the average is, and that's your new retainer.
Do Ryan and Justin know this yet, or are they finding out on this podcast episode?
Well, they don't give a shit because it's my company now. But they do know. Yeah, they do know. And they agree. They think it makes sense. Because what it allowed me to do is the reason they're meeting with them every single week, which is super inefficient, is to really challenge people to submit lists. Right? Well, there's different ways of challenging and pressuring people. It's put them on a credit system or have no access at all. And I'm going to pull up the drawbridge around the moat.
Yeah.
Where you can't get this data and you got to solve the problem elsewhere. And you can go to having once a month or maybe once every 2 week account management instead of every week, because forcing a list is no longer a thing. They're paying for it whether they submit it or they don't. If they submit above it, we'll just invoice them separately. But there's just things like that I'm seeing as opportunities for us to jump in there. On top of that, dude, I've got some whale. I just got off the call today with Ryan, and there's a $1.5 million deal that's like legitimately likely.
Let's go.
It may not be 1.5 out the gate, but it'll probably be 80 something out the gate, and then it'll go up to 88. 200 a year. What is it? No, 220 a year starting, and then it goes up to like 470, and then there's like a logical path to 1.5.
Let's go, man. That's awesome. Congrats.
Be cool.
Well, we'll skip the least favorite part because that's not very much fun.
My least favorite is meeting with 70 clients and having 57 calls this week. Literally 57 calls.
As you're excited, a lot of momentum. There's like even the idea of PRL and what it is, right? Like as you pitch it to people, I think there's kind of like the, oh shit, like when they finally start to understand it. It makes me think of a conversation you and I had a little bit via text earlier today and last night. I was talking about the Gartner hype curve. So the innovation hype curve, and how I feel like it applies to every technology, every innovation, every sales tool, every guru, every piece of advice on LinkedIn, and then it, all the way to like crypto and AI and all these fads that hit the market, right? It's actually, they're talking about like software and new technology and futurist stuff. That's what this thing is built to kind of explain.
Sure. Yep.
But basically the hype curve goes, it's immediately overhyped. So let's just think about sales tech or sales tools, right? Like everything that hits the market. It gets overhyped. Everybody buys in. Let's actually, and not in a demeaning way, but I thought immediately about $100 million leads, right? So we love Alex Hormozi. He's been on the podcast. He's been influential. We both follow him. We both think he's wicked smart. But like, dude created massive hype, and a lot of it was generated by him and the way that he runs his business, the way he does content, and the way that he draws you in. But like, man, the market was just screaming for this thing, right? You finally get the book, you get the presentation. It's filled with a lot of good stuff. But even you said and admitted, like, I don't think it's as innovative or groundbreaking as his first book, $100 million Offers. And so then what immediately happens when people realize that this is not the magic bullet, this is not the get-rich-quick thing, this isn't the innovation that's going to change your business or change the future immediately, you fall off that hype curve or overhyped curve and down into what they call, like, I called it the abyss of despair or disillusionment or something.
100%.
And only those who are willing to weather those feelings of or combat those feelings of disillusionment and press through to learn and engage with the content and grow with the innovation or whatever, there is a track and a path towards like a slow growth.
What do they call it? A plateau of productivity?
Productivity, right? But you've got to like really work for it. So it's not the overhyped get quick rich. It's not really the bottom falls out pit of despair scenario. It's really like a middle ground, but in order to get there, you've got to really work for it.
Yep.
Do you feel like that? Am I right in saying that applies to most tech and tools and like
100%?
Why
do
we as humans react like this?
I think we are natural optimists to some degree, at least people who make those types of purchases for tech or whatever, or whatever our big decisions are. Right. And so to boil that entirely down to like a one concise sentence, the way I was thinking about it after you said it to me, I was like, it's so true, because you have all the hype and you have all the excitement when you buy into this new thing. You are naturally going to be disappointed that it is not what you thought it was out the gate. Mm-hmm. But so long as you continue to use it, leverage it, and optimize for it, you will find a middle ground that is like, okay, I can ride this to success. But it rarely ever lives up to the hype, which is okay. But you just got to realize that you got to push through the up, the down, and then you're going to find that middle plateau of productivity.
Let's talk about a really close to home example, right? So right now, in all our LinkedIn posts and all your content on this podcast, it's like the phone, right? The phone is the quickest way to talk to your market. It's the only way to get the optimized feedback. We can go to market faster than any other whatever, right? Mm-hmm. The reality is, like, the phone's awesome, and people out there, most revenue, anybody expert is going to tell you that all channels are viable, but the phone is awesome. But clients get in and work with us, and we run a completions project for them where we've built out their kind of total addressable market. We've figured out what kind of profiles and accounts we're targeting. We build a list. We start running outreach. And then, like, meetings slowly start trickling in. And over the course of that engagement, it's like we book 5, 10, maybe more than that if they're lucky meetings. But, they had this expectation that we were going to just totally change their lead generation world in 4 to 6 weeks.
Yes.
But it's really those who push through and like dig in that get the value. Talk about what that looks like and how you've extrapolated value or explained that value to our clients in that process, and what it would look like to really leverage that towards that plateau of productivity.
Yeah, I think because when people like buy into, I want to hire an SDR team, or I want to build out full cycle sales reps, or I want to create a sales operation that runs without me, or I want to outsource my sales to whatever. They buy into this unrealistic expectation. You can tell them the range is 5 to 15% conversion rate, and all they hear is 15%, and they start getting pumped. And so I think that writing of the expectation is important. It's like, hey, the way I like to explain it to people is like, hey, if we have 100 completions or conversations or cold pitches, or probably, I'd like to rebrand completions, by the way, to cold pitches. Because that's what it is. It's like, can we get into a cold pitch with the market? Or we get through an entire message. But nonetheless, let's say we have 100 of those. Like, statistically speaking, 5 to 15% will convert into a meeting. 20 to 30% will activate but not book. Right? But what I like to say is, if you are basing this off of meetings, you've already lost. But let's say you are basing it off of meetings. What I want you to do is I want you to get very comfortable with 5, and I want you to get very excited about 15. And realistically, it's probably going to be somewhere in the middle. But the benefit is, in the plateau of productivity, is if you keep playing out this play over and over again,
Yep.
What you're not paying attention to is the 20 to 30% that activate, aka these are intent leads that you have manufactured and generated. These are intent leads that are maybe not ready to book right this second, but they could book here in the near future. You do a couple months of that. If I have 100 conversations, or cold pitches, if you will, and I have 20 to 30 activations a month, well, you play that out over the course of 6 months. That's somewhere between 140 and 180 MQLs that you should be and could be working. If you can just get 20% of those back into a meeting, that's an additional, what is that, 36 meetings potentially?
Yeah.
And so don't just play the immediate meeting booked game. Play the long play, and like that's what you have to kind of tell that story.
But there's skill and there's consistency and there's like cultivating of expertise that's required to get to that point. And most people aren't willing to do the dirty work that it takes to get there because it's not sexy, it's not flashy, it's not the quick win.
Correct.
Right.
100%.
Dude, I had this realization while I was jogging yesterday. I ran 3 laps. One was like all out. I took like a 30-second break and then I did a paced lap mile, and then I took a 30-second break, and then I did like a recovery mile, right?
Got it.
So I'm out there running my 3rd lap, and I'm moving slow. It's my recovery
1 lap,
mile.
1 mile?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, got it, cool.
I'm running my 3rd mile, slower pace, kind of just jogging through the neighborhood, and it's late at night. I'm like, dude, if anybody sees me out there, they're like, who is this guy? Why is he out here? Why is he moving so slow? And what they didn't see is I just busted my ass and ran a 6-minute mile or whatever, and that
flex.
I'm on the back end of it was a flex, and I'm on the back end of that, and I'm out there just doing what needs to be done. Right, I'm doing what's required. I'm putting in the hard work that's not sexy, and it's kind of so we always say like, what are you doing when people aren't watching? I think there's another like, what are you doing when people are watching that they're not applauding? That's not the sexy, life-changing action, but it's just that consistent input every day that people write off as like, that guy's just kind of like, he's just making his cold calls. He's just doing his daily startup routine. He's just shutting it down at 5 consistently and going home to see his wife. He's just, whatever it is, they just write it off, but you're really building these patterns into your life that have like monumental impact that get you to the goals that you want to achieve.
Yeah, I think it's a good observation, and I do think that there's an aspect of, well, a couple things. There's like random thoughts that came up as you're talking, but one is, and I was thinking about this last night as well as I was sitting on the farm again, staring at nothing. It's my favorite part of the day. I take my dog for a walk. I put my kid down, take my dog for a walk, sit on the hill, stare, maybe smoke a cigar.
Come a long way from yelling "fuck the universe" or whatever you.
Mama, I've made it. It's actually in line with what I'm about to say. Was 2 things. One is the belief of change. Because I think that I can write people off, not think they're putting in the work, not thinking they're doing the thing, and they very well might not be, right? Like I have the whole 95-5-90. I think 95% of people suck. It's not to say that 95% of people can't enter the 5% category. It's just they're not currently there. But I have to remind myself that I was a 95%er at some point in a category, if not most categories in life, and I've elevated to a 5%. And I have to believe in the core message of change. If I can change, anybody can change. And so it's kind of like in Christianity, right? It's like if you don't believe in the core message of grace for yourself, you cannot believe in the core message of grace for others and forgiveness for others. So I think I can kind of apply that to people. If I just see the guy running slow on the street, it's like, yeah, but he's working towards change, and that guy can change and he can get faster. Now, to your point of like not seeing the stuff that happened before, right? Not knowing what I did from 5 a.m. until 8 when I showed up for the office or whatever. Mm-hmm. It assumes that you give a shit about what people think.
That's good.
Because if you don't give a shit, then it doesn't matter. It's like, I'm going to put in the work,
true.
whether I'm seen or I'm not. I'm playing a game of 1v1, and that one is me.
That was baked into my thinking in that, like, it's funny, because where my head went was, they don't know, but like, I'm still out here doing it anyways. So I had the back end process of like, I'm going to put in the work I need to put in regardless of what they think. But I still have that piece of me that's like, and that lady that's watering her flowers thinks that this dude's out here just like trotting along through the neighborhood, right?
But I do think there's an aspect of like let the scoreboard eventually show itself. The game's definitely not over, and I'd love to see what it's like in the fourth quarter, and
it's good.
See where we both end up in this situation. And so, I think ball don't lie.
Ball don't lie, man.
Ball don't lie.
You said that like 3 weeks ago, and it's so true. Oh, dude, I can't wait. Also, if you have not watched Hard Knocks on HBO, you and I have not talked about this at all.
I watched Hard Knocks like the first season like 10 years ago.
Dude,
right?
This season is incredible.
First season was what, like the Cowboys maybe?
I don't even remember what the first. They've been doing this for a while.
Who is it now?
The Jets.
Oh, interesting.
And it's good Aaron Rodgers? 2 reasons. Aaron Rodgers, and he's amazing just to watch and follow. Like A+ human, super interesting, and is just incredible talent. Watching him on the field, all the coaches just stop what they're doing. Like the position coaches are like, "Oh wow, like that was amazing."
Like, and he looks like such an old man now, but he's balling.
He is, and him and Zach Wilson, who was their overall first round pick 2 years ago, who flopped. They just talk shit back and forth. It's great. You should go watch it.
Yeah.
There was some other point that I was going to tie in there, but you should just go watch it.
Okay. So Hard Knocks, I'm going to watch it.
All right. Let's talk sales stuff. We won't pitch anything because I don't feel like it, and we should just keep rolling.
Baller.
All right. Last week, we dug into the avatar attributes, what it takes to be an excellent closer. And so, in honor of Ryan, who is kicking ass and booking appointments he is maybe the best cold caller that I've ever heard. So now, he's trying to figure out lead gen for Apex and open up the phone for us more than we have in the past. And he's kicking ass. I mean, he's booking meetings every day.
Yep.
That brings me to, so what does it take to be a world-class SDR?
What's interesting is listening to Ryan has changed. This is so annoying that like Ryan's rubbed off on me in a lot of ways.
Okay.
Hopefully I've rubbed off on him too, but I don't know. He's a stubborn asshole, so maybe not. Ryan, I know you're probably listening to this. But it's interesting because when I listen to him, like there's a couple things. There's the script. So I think I've done role plays on here of cold calls, and I'm pretty naturally good on my feet. I'm actually a really good cold caller when I do it. I just haven't done it in so long, realistically. But I think there's an aspect of just knowing what to say, when to say it, and kind of having that like intuition.
Yeah.
But I'm a founder, and I understand marketing, I understand sales, I understand like business in general, so I can kind of ad lib. But if I'm thinking about simply a good setter, like a great SDR of some sort, like there's got to be a sound script, and it doesn't need to be polished in the sense that there's no stutters, there's no pauses, it flows naturally. And that's what's been interesting listening to Ryan's script, because there's like intentional pauses, there's intentional ums, and sometimes it might be overkill. It is a pattern interrupt, and it's a slow pacing strategy. It's the tone's good, the pace is good. It's disarming in a lot of ways. You don't come across as like the suave salesy guy. And so I think that's potentially an aspect. The second is the script. So I think that what I love about Ryan is no matter how good he is, he sticks to the script until he gets answers to his like probing questions he wants to ask. And so I think that's a big thing, is like really landing on a winning message and a winning script is huge. And so he who can stick to the script can get the best data as well on what's working and what's not. And the third part, which is anti-script, which is, okay, after the script is done and you have opened the door, if you will, or got your foot into the door, and you ask the questions, how do you then transition that into asking intelligent follow-up questions that are somewhat intuitive and somewhat understanding of where they're at and empathetic, to then get them to a place of conversion? And Ryan and I talked about this a lot the other day, so this is something I've been thinking about a bunch, is the ultimate, like what I love about completions that it brings to the table that other things are not, is we're essentially creating attention demand, right? Like it's all about intention or attention. attention is what you have to have in every transaction. Right? We've talked about the trust transaction ladder, or like I think maybe you at some point said it's more about taking the action, or maybe it was Kellen or someone else, but it was basically it's attention. You got to get attention, likability.
Yep.
Likability creates affinity for you, for the brand. Credibility, which is the ultimate thing that people want to see when they're making a decision, but likability enables more at-bats to prove credibility. And then it's transaction or action. So a transaction might be a sale, but an action might just simply be booking a call or whatever. So I think it's the ability to, within a cold call, do all those things. Gain attention, create some level of likability, prove some level of credibility with the questions you ask, and then ultimately get them to the action. Very long, thorough answer. I apologize.
It's great.
Okay.
Well, and I think one thing that Ryan's team, now our team internally, does a great job of is recognizing like what a cold call should be and what it shouldn't. And so I think where a lot of founders, CEOs building out sales teams get lost is they expect their SDRs to be able to like pivot and handle every objection and really show the value and all these things, like nuanced answers to questions. And they're giving them way too much versus run the script, ask these few questions, try to book the meeting, whatever the next step is, and let the sales guy, let the account executive who gets paid multiple six figures maybe in OTE, let them handle those questions. Let them do the follow-up, right? So you're not trying to solve every problem in that cold call. It's great. In terms of like temperament, see, we talked about kind of like script and what the role looks like. I mean, is it the same as the closer? Like, are you still looking for the tenacity and the?
I still want I want that hunger. I want the hunger. I want the teachability. You know, one thing I love about how we are going about, and Justin has really brought this to the team, and it's kind of his baby. But how we're going about hiring our sales reps and sales team is basically a two things. One is the only way that you get an interview is by cold calling Justin. So I have all these people in my DMs on LinkedIn ask me, hey, how can I be on the sales team? And I said, you've got one path forward, and that's to find Justin Middleton's number and get him on the phone. And people will do it once, and there's one guy who's done it like 15 times, finally got a hold of him, and now he's in the process. And so our process is we go through a training session we try to do it a cohort of a couple different sales folks. And then we go into trial by fire. We give them live lists. We give them scripts. We do the software I'll tell you about later, JJ, that we're working on right now where we can basically be in a virtual sales floor and listen in on people as they connect.
Oh, dude.
Bro, when you see this thing, it's fucking gnarly. It's my favorite. It might be my favorite tool I've ever seen. I'm not even kidding.
Come on, man. Is this the overhype on the hype curve?
Yeah, bro, we're on peak hype. But they do a trial by fire, and it's basically like you fuck up, you're done, you're gone. And it doesn't mean fuck up like you don't do the script. It's like if you give up, if you're just kind of like screwed up. It's like no, like push through it, go, learn. I'm gonna whisper to you in this tool. We're gonna afterwards do a debrief on the call. Bro, I'll tell you about it.
Dude. Well, hold on.
There's so many applications for this, by the way. I'll tell you about it later.
One of the applications needs to be that the
we record
six
it
of
and
us
we promote the LinkedIn content.
No, dude, the six of us need to have a cold call off.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Yeah,
well, that's part of the 4x4x48.
Yeah, but how long has it been since like me, Corey, and Matt made a bunch of cold calls, or you made a bunch of cold calls?
It's been a while.
I mean, obviously, Justin and Ryan.
Last time
Corey
and I were making them like regularly, it was probably like March or April. Yeah. So, a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, that's cool. All right. Excited.
There's way cooler stuff. I'll tell you about it, but I don't want to give away the goods.
Fantasy sports.
No, it's literally the tool you can do fantasy sports.
Come on, man. Oh, dude, you got me excited. All right. I got to compose myself. All right. Let's talk about staffing sales teams.
Okay.
We've talked about this in the past, but I just want to think current landscape. If you had to staff a low margin, low average contract value business versus one that's the opposite, right? Higher margin, high average contract value. How are you thinking through staffing models for each?
So Okay, so talk about, what's the first one you said? Low margin, low ACV?
Yeah.
Annual contract value. Versus high margin,
High ACV.
high ACV. Okay. I don't know that I'm staffing it entirely different. I think the strategy's probably different.
Ooh, yes. Okay, start there.
So, well, one, the statement of the obvious is if you have less margin and low ACV, you have to know whether or not you can even do outbound sales. So it depends on how
can you
low.
afford it?
And the second part of that equation, the other side of that coin is what's your cost to acquire a customer? Like, what can you spend? That's ACV. You have to also consider an LTV. So, like, are you playing the long game, and are you willing to sign someone up for a 4-year contract?
A lot of SaaS companies. Yeah.
That or like managed service providers, IT managed service providers, their average deal is like 25, 30 grand. Their margins are like 10%, but they tend to keep clients for 4 or 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And so if you play that game, then it's like, okay, year 1's not super profitable. Year 2 is more profitable. Year 3 is a lot more profitable.
Yeah. Yep.
So it really comes down to that. But I would say as a whole, I think the strategy is different. It's what can I spend money on? So I'll take the high margin one because I think that applies more to like our business. We have really large contract values. We hopefully can keep clients for a long time, hopefully, and especially now. And our margins are really good. So we have a relatively high cost per acquisition ability or a threshold cost to acquire a customer. I'm willing to go spend a lot more money on the strategy. So what does that mean? Like right now, we've got an entire data process that we've now mapped out that goes between a bunch of different people and processes and tools and teams and waterfalls and whatever. Then it goes to PRL and it gets segmented out. Right? That's an expensive process in and of itself. Now, you could argue that you're going to get that money back quite easily in production and productivity, but neither here nor there. But what we found, or what we're doing, is essentially building out an approach that's a combination of volume and account-based. And so our strategy is that our phone-ready leads, the ones we know are going to answer the phone, goes to a phone team. Right now it's run by Ryan. Those who don't answer the phone are going to go to an email and social team, and they're going to do that. And then I'm also now in the process of working with someone to build out a direct mail giftology team. And so I can do that because I can spend a lot of money. So a strategy might be that if I know this group right here answers the phone, I might start actually run them through the phone a couple times. Those who I don't get, I can send a gift to or lumpy mail of some sort and then call them again because I know they answered the phone and they got my gift.
That's cool.
So there's a different strategy there. I can spend a lot more. Now, if I was a low margin, low ACV, my answer would probably be more about stick to the phone, stick to email, and have an insane follow-up process. But you're going to have to squeeze as much juice out of every conversation or connection you have. And so you have to take that activation strategy a lot more serious. And what I mean by activation is you cannot just settle for booked meetings and back into your numbers. You've got to have a workflow and a strategy for what about the people I talked to and I couldn't get them on the phone or I couldn't get them into a meeting, but there's a level of intent there. They're using a competitor of ours. They just signed with a new competitor so we can circle back and see how it's going. They are going to solve this, but it's not till Q1 of next year. Like all those folks, we got to create a strategy for and squeeze as much juice out of that as possible.
It's good. What about the founder-based seller? So no sales team. You're not hiring. It's been a while since we talked about this. In 2023, how would you coach a founder-based seller to maximize their impact on growth?
Now, realistically, I mean, if you have a set of cojones, I would do two things. I would send a list to PRL and get it segmented. I'm kidding, and not just because I own the company, but now
I just love your conviction that it's like it's true, and I've seen it. So it's not even just conviction; it's like it's the truth.
But it's not because I'm obsessed with the phone, right? I think email is just as effective in a different way. But that's what I'm getting at is you are going to have to become more efficient with your efforts. And the only way you can do that is to know who answers the phone and who doesn't.
Yeah.
Right? And so if you can send a small-ish list, let's say it's 500, and you can get back that, 50 to 120, we don't answer the phone. Okay, well, then that means that 450 to 380 don't. So create a call strategy, make a few. So we know that the connect rates say it's 33%. Well, that's the case. Well, then we need to make sure that we're making a few dials a day. Let's call it 15, so that you can have 5 conversations, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the breakdown. Every 3 calls, you'll have a conversation. So do that, have the conversation, and work, the small amount of, because you don't have much time. So in your hour, you can easily have 6 to 8 conversations probably. So give an hour to that. But then the 350 that you don't, spend your time doing research and do highly targeted account-based email. And so say, hey, I'm going to give an hour to the phone or 30 minutes to the phone with PRL leads, and I'm going to give an hour to 30 minutes to researching and writing highly personalized account-based emails. And I'm going to aim for a 2 to 4% conversion rate on those emails, and that's how you're going to build your pipeline.
Would you do that one-to-one email rather than taking those 350 and just dropping them into a sequence and seeing what falls out
every
the bottom?
time? Okay. 100%. I would never.
What about though? Oh man, I'm going to press on it a little bit, and I want you to debate. Why not? If you're already super squeezed for time, which you get more than anybody else, and you are going to prioritize the phone, which is the quickest way to have those conversations and get the most feedback, why not attempt, in the name of campaign scaling, right, the lowest fruit, lowest barrier to entry, more sequenced or templatized or automated email first to see if you can at least get some traction?
Because you're not going to.
Okay.
Right. Ultimately.
Debate over.
Well, it's just you're not. At the end of the day, I'd much rather you be a human and send 10 emails than be non-human and send 100. You're going to probably book the same amount of calls. And so because you don't have the time or the budget to keep building massive lists, use the 500 that you built the list on, spend some time on it, spend a little bit of money on that list, get it segmented, and then spend time on making every, I liken it to, I'm a big UFC MMA guy. And so it's really interesting to watch really good martial artists, right? If they're good at wrestling, they take their time and they take their shot, right? They counter, right? A good wrestling takedown approach is wait until you get your range down. And then when you know that they're about to throw a certain punch or kick or whatever, you counter that and then you enter. Same with a punch. There's a guy who just knocked someone out for the belt, who's my favorite fighter, Sean O'Malley. And it was very evident that the first round they were just feeling each other out. He was getting his range. He was throwing a couple shots. He defended a few takedowns. And then you could tell he had practiced and waited for the perfect time for where he was going to counter a shot that was thrown at him. And he picked his shot and threw his overhand right and cracked the guy and put him down. But it was textbook. And so it's all about pick your shot, take your time. You're not in a hurry.
Targeted, tactical, be a human. I like all that. All right, let's wrap with this. So this I know we got to keep it to 5 minutes here. Maybe we can, maybe we can't. All right, we got a client who will remain anonymous.
Yes.
So every one of our R&D projects has gone swimmingly. This one, somehow we failed to meet their exact expectations. And yet, I learned today that they're really wanting to continue to work with us.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So they like the momentum that we've gotten, but they still, there's a gap that, honestly, I don't quite understand that they feel like was promised to them that they did not receive during R&D. So
sure.
They put their heads together, sales guy, CEO, or he's kind of a sales guy. What they came up with was a 3-month contract instead of 6. They will put themselves on the line to pay half up front, and they want the second half of that full payment to be contingent on a performance basis that we help them ink 2 signed contracts a month over the course of those 3 months.
Got it.
What are your thoughts?
Go fuck yourself.
Okay.
I mean, here's the thing, dude. I'm not in the business of bowing to anybody.
I don't negotiate with terrorists.
But to some degree, it's true. Like, you misheard something, and I know exactly what you're talking about. I know what they thought they expected, which is complete baloney because I don't even, like, I sold that deal, and I don't even use that word. And so the fact that they thought that they're getting this thing, was bizarre to me.
The D word?
Not getting the dick, no. A playbook. They thought they were getting playbooks. And it's like, that's not even, that's not a deliverable.
Sure.
You signed a contract. You also had a one-pager that you looked at to then say yes to getting the contract. And neither of them say you get playbooks on there. It says you get scripts. It says you get recordings. It says you get all these things. But I'm not building you a playbook because I know you can't do this playbook. So why would I give you the playbook? Because you can't afford this playbook. Only we can afford it is because if we do it, and the only reason we can afford it is because we have economies of scale with a bunch of clients. So
Sure.
But nonetheless, if that's how you heard things and that's how you're interpreting and this is how you're responding, and now you're changing our scope of work and how we run our business model, et cetera, like all you're telling me is you're not going to be my favorite client. And I don't think that you want to be in a position where you're not my favorite client.
That's good. That's good.
And
Yeah.
we've got pipeline. So I would say let's get on a call and we can all talk this through. And I will say, go fuck yourself. And here's the terms.
Yeah. What's funny is, so two things. One, my propensity was like, oh, dude, I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna crush this. Like,
totally. And I know we could. I'm just go ahead. Sorry.
Yes. No. But then, to my visceral response was, my emotional response was, I accept the challenge. I'll do this. Like, obviously the company takes a little bit of a hit, but I'll just do it for free. And then I'll get my full payment on the back end when they back pay us for everything they already owe us. But I'm going to get the 6 contracts like signed in 3 months. Yeah. But to zoom out, and I really respect the fact that you've got much more of like an owner's mentality of like, nah, dude, like I only want to bring on people that I want to work with, and I want to think level-headed, and I want to think like Apex first. And we're going to honor our initial contract, which this was not in the scope of work, and that's all. And we want to stick to our guns moving forward. I also, the other thing is, I was talking to the guy that I connected with today who kind of presented me with their thoughts, which was this.
Was it a call or an email?
Interesting offer. Well, I emailed him to say, hey, we want to reconnect and just make sure that we're squared away on everything. He called me immediately and was like, hey, we talked. This is what we think would be fair. We want to move forward with you guys, but like these would be our conditions.
Got it.
But I told him, I'm like, dude, Joey, like we're not going to be able to meet until sometime next week because he's slammed with all these PRL calls and stuff. I'm like, but I've got a podcast spot with him today, so I'll bring it up on the show with full anonymity, and I'll just get his thoughts.
Here's my ultimate thoughts of like, here's what I would truly say if I had him on a call, and whatever, you can clip it if you want, but it's at the end of the day, I believe that we have built a world-class organization that you cannot get all of these solutions in any one place. And if you can find them in multiple places, you will spend more money because they don't have the economies of scale because they're each building businesses in a silo. You're not going to get a VP of sales. You're not going to get sales development rep. You're not going to get data and lists built, cleaned, and enriched and segmented for you. You're not getting all of this. And so there's one place to get this. This is the place. We've priced it fair to be equivalent with value. And so if you can't pay our fee for what is fair and what is value, I'm not going to put a rider on contingent upon whether or not you can close this guy or this guy. And so, no. And so if that doesn't work with you, like, good luck solving this problem. I know you're not going to, and I know you're probably going to still move forward with me under my terms because I know you can't solve this elsewhere. But I want you to be very clear that we're in a place of privilege and power because we're good at what we do. And if you don't think that we are worth that, spending money with us, then don't pay us. And we don't need your money in the first place.
Bang.
That's what I'd say.
Well, I've got my marching orders. I appreciate it.
Give me a call. I don't care.
All right. Yeah, dude.
I mean, I believe
make
you
it
can
happen.
close it, but if you want me to do it, I can.
We'll talk about it.
All
All right, to those of you still listening to my brief therapy session and this interesting business dialogue, we appreciate you. Thanks for giving us your time and attention. As always, rate, review, subscribe, leave us comments. We respond to the vast majority of them and like to interact with you guys.
Hell yeah.
Check us out on YouTube if you've not, youtube.com/@bestdamnagency. And as always, thanks for being here with us. We'll be back next week for another episode of the Best Damn Agency podcast. Cheers.
Peace.
Whoa. Who knew I would make it this far? They hated, they never believe me. Yeah, I would never drop the ball. I know I make it look easy. Yeah, maybe.